In this tutorial, I'm going to briefly touch upon the history of remixing as we know it. As far as I know, it all started out in the early 70s, maybe even late 60s in Jamaica, actually, where producers of reggae tracks and dancehall tracks came into the studio after a track was done, a production was done, and they put their signature stamp on a new version of the existing track by mixing in and out vocals and the different instrumental parts. And it was especially guys like King Tubby and Lee Scratch Perry who were famous for doing this. Now, remixing in the pure sense of the word is, of course, a guy coming in and, sitting behind the mixing desk and finding a new balance of all the different parts of a track, maybe altering the volume of stuff, adding EQ, adding effects, anything to make a different sounding version of a track. And then came disco. And disco in the 70s was, it was an underground thing, and it started out as an underground thing. And a guy like Tom Moulton was famous for doing his dance remixes of tracks that were not especially usable in the context of a nightclub, but he came in, he added stuff, he removed stuff, made it sound fatter than the original track. And that is what became known as remixing. And guys like Arthur Baker and Shep Pettibone, John Jellybean Benitez, they were famous for putting their cool stamp onto a track and make it playable for DJs in the nightclubs. So that is, in a nutshell, the history of remixing as we know it today. And I think Shep Pettibone, now that I mentioned him, was the very first to actually take a vocal and only use that vocal recording of a completed track, of a completed production, and threw everything else away and started building up a new track underneath the vocal. I think it was him who did that first. And these days it's actually pretty common to throw everything away but the vocal, or a very specific riff or a sound from a track, and only use that. So that's what I'm going to do today. This song that is in front of me, Locked Up in Your Love, has some specific elements that I like, other elements that I'm not too sure about. So we're going to go to the next tutorial and see what we're going to keep, what we're going to throw away, and determine a direction for the remix.